In the heart of every man, there's a strength we can't deny. Through the storm and through the pain, we're reaching for the sky.
Hi everyone, welcome to the third episode of season 1 of Resurrect Patriarchy podcast. I'm Jeremy, I'm with my friend Harad, and we're here to talk about the masculine and the feminine, what patriarchy is actually supposed to mean, and what is in it that is really positive and probably missing right now in Western societies. Harad, do you want to say hi?
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I am very happy to be here with you, Jeremy. And this is going to be a fun journey. Let's go. Take it away.
Cool. So today I want to talk about toxic masculinity. I know that's a subject that is causing so much trouble between people. Some say it doesn't exist. Some say it's actually masculinity in itself that is toxic and that should be eradicated. Obviously, I believe that none of these two things are true. And I want to use this episode to try to draw more nuanced lines between what is toxic masculinity and what it is not. And precisely my take on this is that patriarchy, when understood correctly, is actually everything but toxic masculinity. It's actually healthy masculinity, and it's actually the driving force of this spiritual experience that we're having all together. So yeah, toxic masculinity. I've read something about this. I want to start with this. It's actually, most people think it's an invention from feminism, and it's actually not the case. The concept of toxic masculinity comes from the beginnings of men's work. So therapeutic groups between men based on Jungian psychology. For those who know Carl Jung, it's one of the fathers of modern psychology with Sigmund Freud. And so it's actually men who come up with this concept of toxic masculinity. And from what I remember, I'm not an expert on this. I've not been doing huge research on this, but from what I remember that I've read, when they talk about toxic masculinity, they talk about the way that men, when they are lost, when they are in pain, tend to abuse the power that comes with masculinity, which abuse. It can be abuse of physical power or abuse of manipulation tactics and stuff like this. And so to talk about toxic masculinity is actually, yes, to talk about abusing your power as a man and abusing about your status as a man and your privileges as a man. But so, yeah, from there, what I find it interesting is that today we call patriarchy, we use the term patriarchy as something really negative most of the time. And so really there's kind of a confusion between patriarchy and toxic masculinity and the what they call the systemic structures of patriarchy, of a patriarchal society, so a society that has been ruled by men, and that would be that is problematic in many ways because it's been preventing people from their freedom, from rights to actually not be absolutely dependent on men or stuff like that. And so what I find interesting is that patriarchy is at least from where I stand, it's nothing. It has nothing to do with like these systemic structures. But patriarchy is the power that we actually give to men willingly when we realize that men lead from a place of devotion and are really to make sacrifices for their community or for their family and stuff like that. And when you see someone dedicating his time and energy to care for other people, to care for community, you actually empower them to do so. You feel inspired to empower them and to revere them for doing so. And that's what I call patriarchy, and that's what I believe the spirit, the original spirit of patriarchy is in our societies. It's been mostly vehicled by the Christian religion, and there is a lot to say about religion institutions, but that's an entire other conversation. But what I mean is that in that regard, it's patriarchy is actually the total opposite of systemic oppressive structures and of toxic masculinity, which is basically men not caring about other people and pursuing selfish endeavors despite the possibility or the actual consequence of harming other people, harming their community, harming other men sometimes as well. And so, yeah, I believe I've kind of portrayed how I put nuance in these two concepts. So Harald,
Yeah. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you. As I was listening to you, I had this very interesting little thought experiment that came up. Very simple. So we all understand that we live in the digital age, and search engines define a lot of how we see things. And you were also talking about, simply, I'm not an expert, but what I've read and what I've heard, listened, and within your own mind, you've intellectualized it and you've critically unraveled all these different ideas, and you've come up with your own nuances when it comes to the definition of patriarchy. So what I thought to do was, without any extra words, just Google the word patriarchy itself, just to see what immediately comes up. And I knew I was going to be kind of shocked by it, but I'm very shocked by what came up, and that is, firstly, the first part of the definition seems relatively straightforward, and it says, I'm going to quickly read it to you. It says, a system of society or government in which the father or eldest male is head of the family, and descent is reckoned through the male line. But the second part is where things get a little rocky, and that is a system of society or government in which men hold the power and women are largely excluded from it. Now, folks out there, you can't tell me, no matter what country you're from, people are being excluded for various different reasons. Where we saw patriarchy as a negative thing, where men are in power, as in the Greek society where women aren't allowed to vote. Nobody, and by nobody, in this conversation right now, neither of us are denying the fact that there have been, what this conversation is about, that there have been toxically masculine and patriarchal rule taking place throughout history. But to impose this responsibility of taking accountability for that on all men alive today, in even the youngest among us, to say that you are the cause of all this disease and pain that women and that other races have experienced, it's just not healthy. It's not going to get us anywhere. It isn't. We can have this conversation, and we should have it, but we should actually have the conversation instead of accusing people, because most of what we're saying here, and I am relatively sure Jeremy and I are on the same page when it comes to this, is the way, and I mean, it's directly tied to what he was saying now, how he was describing it, is to all of you that, and he didn't mention the word honor for some reason. I really thought he would, but it's really honoring the men when it comes to their self-sacrifice for the people they love, and specifically women. for their children and their wives. Most men would love to have purpose being driven by other human beings, that their purpose lies within others and caring for them and loving them and keeping them safe and cherishing them and working for them and for the family and coming home to that. Most of us would love that, but now we're taught that that is just not the case because women don't need us anymore. We're what? They're all individuals. They live in a modern society where things have been organized in a way that you don't have to care about food that much because things have been structured and organized and industrialized so that we can live as complete individuals, and that specifically includes women. You can go into the corporate world, you can be your own person, and you don't have to rely on a man, and that's wonderful. Nobody here is criticizing that. It's beautiful if that's truly how you see the world, and you want to be as independent as possible. You don't want to rely on men. You don't even want to have a man in your life. I completely respect that. But if it's only because of some level of societal indoctrination that took place, and I mean, when I googled this definition, the first thing that came up, apart from those two things, was what does it mean? What does patriarchy mean in light of feminism? Because there is clearly some contradictions taking place here. There's no middle ground. We're overcorrecting yet again, and that's really what I want to also kind of just highlight here. It's not about resurrecting a patriarchy that is defined by Google itself on the main page, showing everybody, listen, it's when women have nothing. They are even the lineage. This, and also I just want to add on to it because where it's specifically the first definition said the familial line, the descent is reckoned through the male lineage. This idea that women don't even want to take the surname of men when it comes to the classical sense of marriage, because it's patriarchal. I'm not going to give into this family structure that has been imposed on me. That's not what it was about. At the end of the day, it really isn't what it was about, and we need to actually find a more healthy way of seeing a man that actually wants to sacrifice for his family and his community, but wants to be honored for it, and has a desire to be seen as a role model if he actually embodies the role model in a healthy way. Not to criticize this ambition that men clearly show. It shouldn't be criticized. It is healthy, because there are many women as far, and I'm not criticizing women right now because or men. It isn't a criticism. It's more of just a slight awareness that needs to be brought into society from our unique perspectives. Because I'm not the first to say this, and I won't be the last. But there have been many women that have come forth now all across social media, and I'm so glad I've seen them, that specifically say they love strong men. They love the fact that men can protect them. They love the fact that they can honor and respect these men. I'm specifically talking about their brothers, their fathers, their husbands, in their own lives, their examples, and then they bring those men into the conversation. Just random women, not some celebrity or anything. Just folks like you and I, just people that are living on this planet. And they're doing exactly what Jeremiah and I are doing right now, but on the opposite side, on the female side of this coin. So I know you guys are out there, and that is beautiful, and it means we're not just shouting into the dark here. So yes, Jeremy.
Yeah,
please.
Thank you, Renat. That was amazing. I have two or three things that came to mind as you were talking that resonate a lot, and so I will be exposing them, and maybe it will be food for next episodes. The first one is about, thank you so much for doing this quick search or this quick thought experiment, as you called it, doing a quick Google search on this term, because it's really important to remind ourselves that this media that we're using to get information, they have worldviews. We talk about it with AI as well. I remember in your first episode of your podcast. But this is exactly the same with your search engines and actually all the digital interfaces you're interacting with. There are people building them and putting out their algorithms that reflect their worldviews, and so that's good to take into consideration. But well, this definition about, I wanted to say something about being excluded from power. Like that is true. Like on my side, I'm a libertarian, and so I believe the more we know how to find flexibility with the laws we're putting out there and everything, and the more we keep it at a human level, a human side where it's actually people talking together who decide how they're living together, the best it's gonna be. And so when it comes to this idea of being excluded from power, I believe it is unfair. No matter what you think about what is the masculine energy and the feminine energy, and no matter what you think about how a man is going to be fulfilled or how a woman is going to be fulfilled, I believe it's unfair that we come up with structures when someone cannot defy the status quo just because there are always good reasons people come and defy the status quo. And so this structure that we came up with, this patriarchal structures, so-called patriarchal, they're actually unfair, and I agree. Now, on more, if we talk about what actually is going to make a man fulfilled or a woman fulfilled, the idea behind patriarchy, which I believe needs to be taken more into consideration, especially in Western culture, when we've grown highly critical of all these concepts, is that to let go of control for a woman and actually putting his face in a man that she knows, or in men, in circles of men that she knows have her best interest in mind, I believe is actually exactly what the feminine is about. And so what is going to fulfill most women the highest. And so what I mean is it might be unfair that it turns into really rigid structures, but that what is at the origin of the structures, I believe, needs to be taken more into consideration because it has ageless wisdom. I would just describe it like that. Another thing I wanted to say is, it came to mind as you were talking about respecting women being independent. And once again, as a libertarian, it's obvious to me that people should not evolve in structures where they get no choice in the way they're going to sustain themselves in this world, and the way they're going to survive, and the way they're going to organize, build or not build a family. Like, even if you have opinions about what's best for someone, you shouldn't be able to enforce this vision on someone who doesn't want to. That's just that. Yeah, it will never be right as much as you want it to be. And so, yeah, once again, while we have said that, I also see kind of a contradiction, or at least a paradox in this independent women who are actually not dependent on a husband anymore, but grow more and more dependent on capitalistic structures who have not their best interest in mind, but profit the best interest of their profits in mind. And so at the end of the day, maybe on an individualistic people, for some privileged men and women, it's going to look like independence. But if you look at the bigger picture, we are enslaving ourselves more and more to huge powers, economic forces that we have absolutely no control over. And so I would, question what type of independence this actually is. And a last thing before we finish this is I heard about the trad wives. I believe that's related to what you were talking about, this woman who say they want strong men and I actually don't remember what I wanted to say about this, but
Oh, no worries, Jeremy. That was really wonderful what you said there. And I love your closing comments, and if you'll have it, can I also just leave a last few loose ideas that we can likely pick up on with the next episode, but that really resonated with me when what you
Yeah,
with what you
sure.
just shared. It's
Go ahead.
specifically also related to the power aspect. Okay, so it really hits home for me that and I mean you started with power and you ended with it as well, where you might not be loyal and loving towards a specific husband, but you are loyal and loving towards power structures that are so far beyond your own interests. It's it goodness gracious, I actually also lost my train of thought, but I would like to pick up on a few specific topics related to power itself and the abuse of power when all of it comes back to me in the next episode. There is something that um, that needs to be said about the way that our religious structures have also been set up, and the fact that people think it's completely evil. Some, not all. It's not true. And there's a few controversial figures that I would also like to speak about, but I'll discuss that with you and see if we're gonna go down that road. Other than that,
Yeah.
Jeremy, it was wonderful. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening or watching or whatever. And see you soon on the next episode.
Cheers, guys.
Rise up, lift your head high. Feel the power in your heart, we will be denied. Rise up, let your spirit soar. Together we'll inspire and we'll be much more. Rise up, lift your head high. Feel the power in your heart, we will be denied.